Alright, now it's time to get into some of the fun stuff. Let's create some shapes. I'm going to visit Insert, followed by Shape, where we have several shape options. Let's start with the rectangle, the most basic shape. When we create a rectangle, our cursor turns into a crosshair, and we drag that crosshair to create our rectangle. The keyboard shortcut to get back to the rectangle tool is the letter R on the keyboard. If I drag another rectangle holding the Shift key, much like scaling, Shift will constrain the proportions. The other side effect is if you create a square holding the Shift key, it automatically locks the proportions for any future scaling of that object. The rectangle, on the other hand, is not constrained. The same goes for many of the other shapes. The circle, for instance. It is an oval tool, but if you hold the Shift key, you get a perfect circle instead of an oval. Another thing you can do is hold the Option key when you're creating a shape, and when holding the Option key, you're able to drag out from the center. So if you're trying to center a circle on the corner of something, I'll press O for the oval tool, I'll hold Option, and I'll drag out from the corner of this box. I can also hold Shift to give myself a perfect circle, and now I've got a circle directly emanating from the corner of this box. Now going back to the rectangle, there are two types of rectangles we have to choose from. There's the standard rectangle, and there's the rounded rectangle. Now the rounded rectangle isn't all that different from the regular rectangle, because when we create a regular rectangle, we do have a radius option on the inspector that allows us to round it, which essentially makes them both the same thing. You can either start with a rounded rectangle and make it sharp, or start with a sharp rectangle and make it rounded. You don't have to stress about picking the right one. Now the other shapes that we have to choose from consist of lines, arrows, we also have stars and polygons, as well as a triangle. And with some of these, they have tricks up their sleeve. Like star, for example, and polygon. They both work the same way, where after they're created, the inspector gives me a number of points to choose from. I can increase or decrease the number of points and create a completely different effect. I also have radius, which allows me to determine how extreme the angle and depth of each point is. Now let's insert a line. Lines are a little bit strange. Lines don't actually have a surface area, they just have 2 points. As I click and drag a line, I can hold the Shift key to constrain it and make it a perfectly straight line in 45-degree increments, or I can freehand it. You'll notice on the inspector, I have a from and a to. Each point has its own coordinates, so it's not really quite like a rectangle. Most of the time you'll find that I'll use rectangles instead of using lines. I prefer to work with shapes that have surface areas, so that way increasing the size, the height, the width, and position is the same as every other object on my canvas. Lines are a little quirky. So for the most part, you'll find that we'll be choosing Insert, followed by Shape, followed by Rectangle or Oval, which have intuitive keyboard shortcuts of R for rectangle and O for oval. For the most part, we'll be able to build everything we need to build using these two objects.